In this video, I'm going to show you how to draw a pepper using a cross contour drawing technique. So before I even start drawing the pepper, I'm going to do some practice lines. And what I'm doing is I'm practicing my line variation. I'm using an ebony pencil, but I suggest that you use a 3B pencil if you don't have an ebony pencil, and sharpen it to a good point. Now, as I was doing these practice lines, I actually broke the tip a little bit because I did press down hard. So what you're doing is you're pushing down hard and then you're lightening up slowly and kind of tickling the paper. So now what I want to do is practice drawing like a cylinder type of form. So I'm pushing down hard, lightening up, pushing down hard, hard, gradually lighter, gradually darker, thicker and darker, lighter and darker. The idea is to have the lines darker and thicker, where they're going back, where the form is going back into space, and then have your line lighter and thinner as the form is coming toward you. Kind of as it's bulging out towards you. So darker and thicker, going back, lighter and thinner as it's coming toward you. Now I'm going to try drawing a sphere. It's kind of like a globe with longitude and latitude lines. So again, pushing down really hard to start and then gradually getting lighter, then gradually getting darker. That's why you really want to practice this type of line that has the variations, going from dark and thick to lighter and then back to the dark thick line. Definitely take some practice. Now with this sphere, I'm kind of rotating these lines around it. So I'm pretending I'm drawing, the lines that are mapping or going across the form of this imaginary sphere. And I know my sphere kind of bulges out in the middle and then goes back on the sides. So I'm really working to create that illusionary three-dimensional form. Now, I am going to do some cross contour lines that are, going around the sphere in more of a vertical direction. So with cross contour drawings, you don't have to cross the contour lines if you don't want. You could do your whole cross contour drawing with just like lines that are going basically across the form, like more or less horizontally. But I did want to show you a demo where I'm doing both, because it's a little more complicated. So again, lines are darker and thicker as the form is going back into space, and then lighter and thinner as the form is bulging out toward you. So after I got this sphere done, I decided I needed more practice. So I thought I would try to do some wavy lines here. So I'm going back to my thick and my thin, just practicing, pushing down, lifting up. I recommend you do this, for a good 10 minutes before you start your actual drawing. Here I am doing the wavy lines. So I was thinking about this pepper that I was going to draw, and I know that it has these kind of like an undulating form. And so there's areas that are going back into space and then coming out and then going back. So I wanted to practice that a little bit before I started drawing the pepper. So again, pushing hard, making that line thicker to create that three-dimensional look as the form is going back into space, and then lighter and thinner as the form is bulging out toward you. All right, pretty soon I'm going to finish up my practice and start drawing my pepper. Okay, now this is sped up to double speed, all right? So this is definitely twice as fast as I normally draw. Notice that I'm holding my pencil further back in the overhand grip. This is my gestural drawing of the pepper, just to get it onto the paper as quickly as possible. And I'm starting with a light line. I recommend you start this part of the drawing with an HB pencil. I draw with a little darker pencil so you can see it. Now I'm measuring the pepper with my arm fully extended. I'm measuring the width, comparing it to the height. And I find out that the width of the pencil comes right kind of to the top of that little green part where the stem was growing out of. So I needed to make my pepper just a little bit more narrow. So I'm cleaning up the edges with a kneaded eraser just a little bit right there. Now I'm dropping a vertical. So whenever I am drawing an object that has a curve, I want to see what part of that curve sticks out the furthest, to the left. And then I'm going to drop a vertical on the right side to see what part curves out furthest to the right. So that's how I get my curves exactly correct. I always compare them to a vertical. All right, so at this point, I am refining my modified contour line drawing. So I'm done with the gesture drawing. Notice I am now holding the pencil in kind of a regular grip that you would hold your pencil for writing. And just cleaning up that stem a little bit, working on that little green area where the stem's growing out of, kind of curves around some of those ridges of the pepper. I'm just going to clean up that edge with the modified contour line. And I don't even do the whole edge. Now it's time for me to start my cross contour lines. So again, I had this practice, so I'm ready to go. And I'm pushing down where the form's going back into space and lifting up. And you can see that line kind of wraps around. Now you can see from my photo what I did to that poor pepper. And I felt really sorry about it too, because it was a beautiful pepper and I wanted to eat it, but I sacrificed it for the sake of my students in this drawing. So what I did was I took a permanent marker and I drew the cross contour lines of the pepper. Now I'm not going to follow those cross contour lines exactly, but having them there really gives me an idea about the curve of the lines. It really helps me see that curve and what happens as I'm looking at that pepper and as I'm really studying what the form does, three-dimensionally. So now I'm just working on those curves coming out of the center of the pepper because that's kind of lower section in there. So I'm getting those lines darker and then lighter as they come up. And right in there, I'm starting to draw that line that kind of curves around the top section of the pepper. There's like an indentation in there. And now I'm going to just kind of switch back to that indentation that's curving down. You'll notice, see how I get lighter where the form bulges out, and then darker where it goes back into space. So really light. Sometimes your line can even disappear when the form is bulging out, all right, what am I working on now? I'm going to start about right over, let's see, I'm going to fix that line. All right, so I'm starting with some of the major forms of the pepper. You can see I'm not doing one line at a time like, the photo of the marker lines and the pepper shows. I'm really looking at the form and looking at those major curves between like the little sections of the pepper and working on those. So I'm getting darker at the bottom, cleaning that up a little bit with a kneaded eraser. So I always like to get the darker part. Now, I love that shadow on the bottom, but I just put a couple of curved lines to show you the direction it's going. So people who like to shade, don't do it. This is all supposed to be done with line, okay? So check that out, what I'm doing with this line as it curves around that top of the pepper that's bulging out, really light, and then getting dark as it's going back in space. Now what I have to do with these lines is, on the right side, they're kind of curving towards the right, and then the left side lines are curving towards the left. So right here in the middle, I've got to work out that line that's almost a vertical. It's definitely slanted a little bit. So working on those lines here, I'm going to keep those like fairly light. Okay, so now it's time for me to do those lines that are like going around the pepper, and there that line kind of almost disappears. Here's really kind of where it's nice that I drew those lines on that pepper, and it really kind of helped me see what the form was actually doing. Now, when I drew those marker lines, it was really hard to keep them straight. So actually, when I draw this pepper, the lines will be like straighter in relationship to each other. Not like a straight line, but more evenly spaced. That's what I'm trying to say. So again, as it goes back into space, it's a little bit darker as it goes into those indentations, and then really light where it bulges out, and then getting darker as it goes back into space. And I'm almost wrapped up. I'm gonna have this drawing almost wrapped up, and just finishing up some of those cross contour lines and really kind of feeling, that form as I go. So here's my finished drawing. You can see I got a little darker on the lines on the bottom edge where the pepper is sitting on the table. And have a try. I would suggest doing a couple of these drawings. They're fun, and I think you'll enjoy it.